Times Hour. All right, Paul, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, please welcome to the T our next special guest. He's the master blaster who avoids constructive disaster and saves the day with his quick mind and his faster hands. And with a smile, he goes the extra mile, helpful and kind and always in demand. He's the tour guru who lives the sweet life without the strife you meet on the street, walking tall and speaking small, being just a sample of him leading by example. He's powered by a strong cup of Java, hot like spitting lava. But if he gets a whiff of the sniff of that chocolate, it's like he's got a rocket in his pocket. From the East Bay he rose, and since '86 his legend just grows. But it was in '96 when he and Raj and Riley were in the mix in Van City. Up to his Jedi mind trick, striding boldly and gliding coldly past the guards and onto the court, ballers just hollering to take the shot, they were that hot. From the aquatic safari in the heart of the Golden State, as far as the eye can see, from berserkly best pairs to the high Sierra thin air, there's no place or part he hasn't practiced his art and where we all want to be. He's the first on everyone's list, the one never to be missed. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us tonight from his home halfway between Oakland and San Jose, watching the Astro finale from Castro Valley, Pete Sontag.
Hey,
Ah.
nice.
What's up, Pete?
Yeah, you lived up to your reputation on that one. Very good.
Thank you. I tried. I requested to follow you on Instagram a little too late to do a deeper dive.
I don't
on
really
whatever.
do Instagram. Tell you the truth, social media is not my thing. I'm here now in the flesh, but
So that's what I was able to sift. A lot of little
yeah,
Easter eggs for you there.
No, it's good.
So
Nice.
thanks for joining us on the show, Pete. This is awesome. Mace, why don't we just jump right into it?
Yeah. All right. So, as Paul told everyone here, you're from Castro Valley, California, which is General Bay Area. What are you just outside of Oakland there, or?
Yep, that's where I live. I'm from Hayward originally, right next door, just to be clear. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm East Bay all the way, a little below Oakland, Berkeley. Been
All
playing
right.
Berkeley since the
So what are
beginning.
your teams? Giants, obviously the Golden State Warriors,
I mean,
49ers.
that's kind of a sore spot right now when the A's have got just a couple of series left before they move, after the Warriors moved, after the Raiders moved. So let's move on to another topic. But yeah, I mean, I'm wearing my Warrior shorts, multi-decades season ticket holder for the Warriors and the Raiders fan since Kenny Stabler and, watched Reggie Jackson
Nice.
from right field. So, I'm East Bay all the way. But
Nice. So are you going to
not a
follow
real
the
happy
A's, or are you
time
done
now.
with them?
Not real happy. Say again?
Are you going to continue to follow the A's, or are you done with them?
I will. It's the same with the Raiders. They're my team, and yeah, I'm still going across the bay to San Francisco to watch the Warriors. And, they're your team. They're in your blood. You can't get rid of them, even though they got rid of you.
Hmm.
But we now have a minor league team in Oakland that I went to last night for the first time, a baseball team.
Oh, cool.
So there's something new. But yeah, I'm East Bay all the way. Giants, of course, right? And Niners, I say, the Raiders have been gone for 10 years, and the Niners kept winning the Super Bowl. So, all right, I'll be a Niners fan now, too. Originally Raiders. So that was back in the day when they were in L.A. But so
It's
It's
pretty funny.
complicated.
I didn't. I watched the first time the Chiefs and the 49ers met a few years back at Rogers' house with him, and I didn't even think about him being a 49ers fan till literally like 3 days before I flew out there. And he goes, "Well, I'm certainly not a Raiders fan," and I was just like, "Oh my god!" I didn't even think about it. I mean, I
yeah,
never gave it any consideration. So
I mean,
it's
there is a lot of that where people are one or the other, and I'm not that guy. I'm a Giants fan, I'm an A's fan, but I'm East Bay first. I went to Candlestick, but I grew up going to the Coliseum and watching the A's. I like the Niners, but now Raiders been gone twice. It's like yeah, but I'm still silver and black since my dad was a big fan. We listened to
I was
him.
gonna say that's what you grew up with. I mean, you got to stick
That's
with
what
that
you grow
team.
up with.
People
But
ask me why I haven't switched from the Royals and the Chiefs and the Jayhawks, and I'm like, then I'd be one of those kind of people.
right,
And they look
yeah,
at me and they go, "I never thought about it like that." And I'm like, "Well,
yeah,
I
you know,
feel my opinion is if you rooted for that team as a kid, that's your team. Even if
right.
they suck, even if you're a
Even if they
Cowboys fan
suck,
and Jerry Jones just won't do anything to make the team better or whatever,
right,
that's what I hear about
yeah,
all the time, and I just laugh. So,
yep. So
all
I'm the
right, so
same way.
you've been a PDGA member since 1987. according to this information I have here, and your number is 3389. One of our favorite things to talk about is what prompted you to get your number. Do you have a
I'm
number
sure it was
story?
Tom Schott's tournament. You know, that would have been probably the second year he had that Santa Cruz, Masters tournament or whatever he called it at that time.
What was it? The World Flying Disc Championships?
It was after that. The World Flying Disc Championship was an overall tournament,
Okay.
right? And yeah, it might have been part of that. Actually, now that you mention it, it was previous to his Masters Cup and all that. But originally, the Flying Disc Championship was all around events, and then I guess it was probably about '87 where he was required to make everybody PDGA if he wanted it to be PDGA. So a lot of us signed up because we had to, even though we've been playing for so long. So I'm sure that's what it was.
Right on. Okay, so according to the stats, you have played 375 events. You have 29.
Oh no! Skip down to the stat Mando. Sorry.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
That's just what it says.
I did read that earlier.
I've been to a few more tournaments than that, as you know.
Well, it says 388 total, but
that's
we found some holes in these records. Sometimes there's things that aren't.
Yeah, there always is. Yeah.
Recorded as well, but either way, you're in the neighborhood of 388 to 400 or more. You've cashed 200. You've got 251 caches, 265 top tens, 109 podiums, and 36 wins, according to Statmando.
Nice.
And then, one more thing. Your Global Masters Series ranking is number 23 in men's 60 to 64.
Nice.
So that's some pretty good stats right there.
That's good to hear. Yeah, for me, the weak spot of that is that 70-some seconds and thirds. That's just like, that's been the bane of my existence is the seconds and thirds.
Right.
Just got another one this weekend, and just second place is the first loser. And I spent a lot of years, getting close but not closing. I can blame a lot of that on, having to play against Jeff Listman. He beat me a lot of times. So in my early days, I feel like it was my best time. I was much better back then, even previous to stats, but I'm still working on closing, as last weekend proves it.
Well, I'm sure you could add a couple more names to the list besides Jeff, but I mean,
I certainly can. That's my standard response is like, back in the day, when I was at my prime, was when I was playing against Jeff, and so I lost a lot of tournaments to him.
We'll get into a bunch of the actual specific tournaments, but it's just you're great. I mean, you may not be getting all the wins, but you're getting a lot of cash and a lot of finishes. And for a guy like me who's never finished outside of the bottom, I'm like, hey, that's not too bad. Right. So I've never had the winning instinct for that, but I absolutely understand the frustration of coming second, and especially when they're frustrating seconds too, like you said over the weekend.
But your comment makes me feel better. Gives me a spark. That you're right. It's like, don't complain. I always hate guys who are like, oh shit, I shot a 10 under. That's shitty. So, because I was that guy for a while, and I remember people telling me, oh, I wish I'd have shot that. So I learned not to complain about my round, even though it felt bad. But it's the same thing about a career or a tournament.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy in your neighborhood that you've played a lot of doubles with that's really good at complaining about being in the lead. His initials are J.O. I don't know how I shot so good today, Brian. Oh, my God. 10 under?
Yeah.
Enough, Oates. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
No,
I'm just kidding.
We all learn a lot, and
I love Jim. Don't get me wrong.
I owe a lot to Jim as well, myself. We have a long history of playing together. I think he was one of those who signed up at the same time as me as that tournament. His number's fairly close to mine, so I think that we all signed up in that tournament. That's where I met him, was in Santa Cruz at that tournament.
That's always cool to look at too, like whose numbers are around you, and
right. So that's kind of what I figure. It's like, we were all
I'm
there.
I'm sure that we both know.
He's 3351.
A lot of people.
So if I look up and down 10, you'll probably see a few more people in that tournament.
And so that all comes from Santa Cruz. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Santa Cruz, where
But that was not the overall tournament. That was just the focus on disc golf. I think it was called, according to the PDGA, I believe it was. Oh boy, now I've lost it.
This,
I think it was the Santa
some,
Cruz Open, maybe
yeah,
the first time.
and that might have been Tom's first tournament that wasn't the big tournament that wasn't the flying disc,
Right.
but his
But
flying disc thing
you did
for
play
so
that.
long.
We're going to get to that, and I'm going to ask you about that. But you played that first year, your first, at least according to the database. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right.
I got three more things to throw out there. You're a member of the Masters team for Innova. You're a NorCal champion, and you're currently the reigning Selinsky U.S. Masters champion, which is awesome.
Yeah, that was clearly my biggest win right there.
Yeah.
That's I'm very, very proud of that one, I must say.
Well, this is probably as good a place as any to veer a little off script and say, did you meet Tim? What was your experience at Tim? Do you remember meeting Tim back in the day?
I'm sure I met him in the early days of La Mirada. I didn't go down there often, but I went down there. I think '86 or '80 somewhere. I went. It might have been '90s. I don't know, but I went down there for the La Mirada Open or the overall tournament down there, and I'm sure I met him then. And then I met him over the years at various tournaments. And, very warm and friendly guy. And it's just one of those faces that I would see once a year or once every other year, and considered him a peer. He considered me a peer, although he was, older, and so I was like, well, I'm lucky that he remembers me, and so I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but I saw him often, if once a year is often over a decade or two.
But still, the fact that, I mean, obviously it's a Frisbee family, but to know someone personally like that and then win their tournament, that's an extra feels to it as well. I mean, it's a huge tournament. That's amazing. That's major level or whatever. NT, I don't know what the classifications are, but that's a huge tournament to win with a big payout. But it's also with the Tim.
It was, by far my biggest payout and by far my biggest win. And if we're talking stories, that one has a good story. That
Come with it.
It was in
Come with
Eugene,
it.
and I went. I went up there. I drove, and it was 4 rounds. So after the second round, I left my car unlocked, and somebody took my golf bag and my spare bag. I had 0 discs on the third day of the tournament.
Wow.
And so, after that, I went inside with this blank look on my face. Said, "I'm going to need some help from my friends here." And so, there was a handful of people staying at the rental house, and I got a few discs. And then I went to Final Nine Sports, and I went to, or Played Again Sports, plug for Bruce there, but Played Again Sports and Big Five, and bought some discs. And I might have had like a 3-stroke lead or something after that the second day, but playing with new discs, I went out and increased my lead, and then won the tournament with discs that I had no clue
of. Maybe you should just buy discs next time you get to town.
To me, it's all I've always said. I truly believe it's like it doesn't matter what you throw as long as you throw it with confidence.
And as long as it's a rock and an AVR that you throw with confidence.
It was a rock and it was an AVR. I found a good rock and a good AVR at Played Again Sports. And, I luckily found a good putter that was similar to mine. And then, I got a nice rock from Bruce Knisley, Jim Hagan. Each gave me one of their beat-up rocks, which is key to my game, is a beat-up rock. So I used that. And then Jeff Fiedler gave me a nice destroyer. And so I was able to, augment my bag and go on. And then I played very well in the wind that windy tournament day. So that's, my biggest win, and with an asterisk.
Okay, so that's current. Well, that was 2023, but to this part of that parenthesis, let's go back to the beginning part of the parentheses. You say you're from Hayward? Is that what you said?
Hayward.
Sorry.
Yep, the hick town of Hayward.
He's from Canada. So, cut him some slack.
I'm from Canada. Cut me some slack. But you're from East Bay, and so you're growing up in the 70s in that sun-drenched California decade, golden Frisbee times. When did the Frisbee first enter your life? Do you remember when the first time you became conscious of a Frisbee?
I do remember playing with my dad in the park, where he did the underhand dad throw.
Nice.
and that was with a regular, and that was like, it was just fun. And we played baseball, football, and now we're playing frisbee. But the first time was, as Mace mentioned, was I got to go with my sister's boyfriend to the park, and he was doing all these tips with the 165, and that would have been 76 or something.
Wow.
And I thought, that was so cool, and he was cool, and so then what it lit up for me was, frisbee, and so I just, I learned to do the tips and learned to do the delay, and I I would go out to Berkeley and watch the guys do freestyle, spinning on their fingers. So I spent hours in front of the TV just learning to delay,
So
and
you're
that's where it all
watching
started.
you're
Freestyle.
watching some of the Berkeley Frisbee group guys. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like Victor
that's where I started.
Malafronte and other
Yeah,
original guys?
right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that would have been 76, 77 when I first started, and then I go out there and they played on Lower Sproul Plaza, and I go sit out there and I just watch them. And after two or three times, somebody said, "You want to try and you want to play?" And I would go out and play, and I was inspired by them and all that I saw, and so I learned to freestyle. So I was you know a freestyler first, and then from them I learned that, oh, this is a sport. You got to throw MTA, you can throw distance, you throw there's golf and there's all these events. So I started as a frisbee player. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
You know, freestyle was
So
first.
did freestyle was your entry into the frisbee world?
It was, yeah.
Was there, of the overall kind of level sports, which one, I mean, other than disc golf, which obviously is a path you eventually followed, but which of the other ones did you like the most?
Well, it was distance, because distance was the golf of its day. It was like the macho thing. Who could throw the farthest? And so, like I say, I was there with Victor, and he was always showing off his sidearm, and he
Okay.
was always the king. Everybody looked up to Victor. He wasn't the best ultimate guy. He wasn't the best freestyler, but he could throw that sidearm, as farther than anybody. So I learned my sidearm from him, and I emulated him. And I went out and practiced distance, sidearm, and that was the big thing. So I was a long sidearm thrower back in the day, which was like, oh, I want to be the first guy to throw 300 feet on record. It was like something like that. Is that we're throwing 119s, 40 molds.
It's impossible for people to try to imagine the
Yeah,
the struggle
because that's all
just
we
to get
had,
to
really.
go. Yeah,
Right,
of course. I mean, you
right,
do what you can. So, just off the cuff, I know Victor. There's the famous shot that he did at a San Francisco, I think it was a music
right.
festival. There was
We're at a
like
park. Yeah,
500 plus feet. You obviously
right.
heard about that at the time.
I
You
heard
weren't
about it
there.
many times. I was not there. No,
Yeah,
that was. I was like 15, 16, and
right,
I was happy to be getting invited in the freestyle. And then after a year of the freestyle, I got invited to play in the ultimate, and that was a big deal. I really enjoyed that. At 16, I started playing ultimate with those guys. The Northern California League had just started, so I got to play ultimate with them, and so I went
that,
from freestyle, then distance, and ultimate, and then of course MTA, and then golf was this little thing we did on the side once in a while around campus. It wasn't a big deal,
right.
but soon after that, in 1980, the aquatic park course went in Berkeley, and
Okay,
I was like,
and
what? There's baskets, because we heard about this thing in La Mirada. The baskets,
yeah,
like, oh yeah, right, whatever, that's fine, that's fun. And then all of a sudden there was one in Berkeley, and then I remember riding on the back of a 10-speed bike on the seat, riding down University Avenue to go down to play it with my freestyle. That was the first time I ever played it. Just riding from campus down there, and let's go play this new course. And
that's awesome.
it was fun, and but it was like, nah, okay, that's cool. And we did it a few more times here and there, and there's a little tournament. We all went out and played, but it wasn't something I went out and did all the time back then. You know,
Okay, like, would you go out and play frisbee though all the time?
I would go all the time. Every
Yeah.
weekend I went to play. I went to Berkeley every weekend.
Okay, but
My
during the week,
sophomore year,
would you
no,
just
then my
play?
sophomore year of high school, my my mom and stepdad moved us out to the Central Valley to Tracy, which I did not like. So every weekend I'd come stay in Alameda, and then every weekend I take the bus Saturday and Sunday to campus. And I go play with Hal Erickson and Steve Gottlieb
Wow.
and Victor Manfronte, and just freestyle all weekend long. And then And then
Wow.
the course came in, and then we played a little golf, and you know,
So
so that was
1980 is basically the first time you played actual target golf or basket golf.
yeah, 78, something like that. You know, Neil Holworth was the guy who took me out around the course the first time. That would have been 78, and
Wow.
then 80. You know, then 80 was when I met all the people up in Vancouver. That was the Glenn Whitlock era. So I
You met
moved.
Glenn in 1980?
As soon as I got out of high school, I went up to Vancouver and just happened to stay like 6 blocks from the only frisbee in Western Canada, and met Glenn Whitlock and all the gang at Kitts Beach
Wow.
on the first day in town. And walked down there, and they were freestyling, and I said, "Oh, let me play." And they were like, "Wow, who's this guy?" And then
Nice.
that was just love at first sight. And me and Glenn have been, you know, partners ever since that day.
Uh,
And that
because
was
I noticed,
1980.
That's awesome. That's a great stroke of luck because I mean
Yeah,
that guy's got skills for days and days and
yeah. I mean,
days.
that, you know,
yeah.
we were young and could just, you know, we played all day, every day. I spent the whole summer up there, and you know, ran out of money quickly, and then soon learned the Glenn Whitlock lifestyle. We don't need money to live, and just stayed literally all summer and just freestyling every day on the beach with those guys. And little bit, we played a little golf back then, and did the other events once in a while. But
But
so you know, that's
but
like
when it's on the beach, it's you got the wind, it's free, it's just,
right, yeah,
there's a
yeah.
spiritual thing about it sometimes.
It was really nice. I mean, Kitts Beach in Vancouver is there's a little grass spot there where we played, and the wind comes off the beach, and it's it was really nice. And
Wow.
then they had a tournament at the end of the summer. You know, it was one of the the North American Series tournaments. And we played we played disc golf in little hoops on the ground, throwing them, and freestyled, and another event or something. But that was the end of 1980, I think.
Okay.
And then four of us drove down in a Volkswagen Bug to go watch at Santa Cruz the Scott's turn or Tom Shaw's tournament, because they had all heard about it, and for them California and Santa Cruz was like the holy grail. And so literally four guys in a Volkswagen Bug driving down from Canada to go watch. We didn't even play; we just watched the tournament.
Wow.
And that was
Wow. That's
that
awesome.
was
And
Glenn and
Was he hanging
Scott
out
and
with
Eric.
Sue back then?
No, Sue was no. He was living with another woman that was literally on my path to the beach. So I would stop in, and he had one of those lower level rooms underground. I'd knock on his window, and they'd feed me waffles or something, and we'd go down and freestyle all day. And it
oh,
was that was
that's that
it
is
was a great summer.
fantastic.
It was a great summer.
What a great time and place to
Yeah,
be,
it was.
and it really is. It is a big, huge world, but when it comes to frisbee at that time, it was a very small
It was
world. And
very
once you
small.
saw another
Right.
person who was into it at all, that's it. The bonds are formed.
Right. That sums it all. What happened right there? Because literally, there's nobody else around but these 6 or 8 guys that played frisbee, and here comes some stranger that could play as well as them. And
So was that were they known as the Coastal Cats at that time?
I don't recall the
Okay.
name of that name. Might have been. But that was Jim Brown was there, and
Okay.
Jack Augenstoff, and
So I got a great Sue and Whitler story. They have a tournament usually on the day after the weekend of 4th of July. So like if the weekend of 4th of July falls on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Spam Town Open will happen on Monday. And it's typically been a 2-round C tier. And usually folks, especially like back then on the tour, if you played the Majestic, then you roll down to the Spam Town and play that one-day event afterwards. Well, I was cruising down there by myself in my green van back in the day, and I see this VW bus up ahead, like
yeah,
way off in the distance, and it's just turned off on one of the country roads, just off the highway, or off the. It wasn't even the highway. It was just. It was like a rural highway. I'm cruising up, and sure enough, I was like, "Man, I'm pretty sure that's the Whitler's van." And I pull up, and Sue comes out from under the hinge and hood. Like Glenn jumps out from the side door. Sue comes out from behind the van under the engine hood, and she's literally got grease past both elbows, and she's just like shoulders deep in fixing that van, and Glenn's just hanging out in the van waiting for her to fix it.
Oh yeah, that their van that went a long ways. They had a couple of them, but I had some times in that van. The
Wow.
story that comes to mind is we were heading back into Vancouver from California, and there's this like a tunnel under a bridge, and it's packed with traffic, and you literally just inching. And Glenn was like, "Just turn it off. I'll push the van. We don't want to waste the gas." So literally, she turns the van off, and he's pushing the van because it's going so slow. And
Smart
then
though.
somebody comes along, some authority guy comes like, it's like after 10 or 15 minutes, like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. That one sticks in my mind.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
It is.
I got endless Whitlock stories, and we spent a lot of time together.
Well, he's coming. He's been to Toronto the last 2 years for the reunion of the Toronto Freestyle Frisbee Jam, and next year Toronto's hosting the Freestyle Worlds, and he's going to come for that too.
Nice.
Yeah,
All right.
he's still out there. He's still playing
Yeah.
and hanging out. Yeah, it's great to see.
So
So,
I got to see him a few months ago. That was pretty nice.
so this is like 1980, 81. You officially show up on Statmando and the PDGA records in 1986. What's going on in
Right.
that period between 1980 and 1986?
Yeah.
Because the beveled edge comes in. Are you
Right.
you're
I
a
mean, back
young
then,
man? What, sir?
yeah, in my prime back then. So back then it was only Tom Shots tournament and Sonoma Indian Summer, unless
Just
you went to
two,
LA.
huh?
Yeah, that was it for us. And then Glenn would come down, and he did a little traveling. And, I regret not going with him, but he did a little bit of this and that. He would come down, stay at my house for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and and hitchhike to tournaments and catch rides. But in that time, it was for me. It was going to the Santa Cruz monthlies. Basically that was all there was. But I guess that didn't even start till '85. But there wasn't much back then. It was just like, well, if you want to play golf, you got to go to La Mirada for a tournament
Okay.
because we didn't have, not, you're right that '86 was the first one on record, but you know, it was kind of a wasteland for tournaments.
Interesting. Northern
So
California more than made up for it, obviously, but at the early days, your early days,
yeah,
you got two options basically, right? Two tournament
yeah,
options.
That's
And how many courses are in the ground around this time? Are there? Is it a big spread
it
of
was only
courses?
Berkeley. That was only Berkeley. That
Right.
was it. That was Berkeley, for
And
miles and miles.
and
And
how
if you
far?
saw another golfer, it was huge. Literally, there was nobody playing that. You know, Nobody even knew what it was. And now the place is packed. But literally, in the early '80s, there maybe some of the locals would get together and have a tournament or something, but we had nothing. And that's when I was my most enthusiastic. I was throwing distance sidearm, and I just playing. But again, it wasn't golf; it was disc.
Right.
So I didn't really get to be a golfer until say '85 or a little sooner, because I'd say I played ultimate, you know, in Berkeley till '81 or two, and they got
Right.
real serious, and I didn't. So then it started getting more popular in Hayward. There was a local team, so I started playing with them in '82, '83, and then we had a little course and on the local campus there. We started playing, and it was '85 when I met Tom at Indian Summer. The Sonoma said, because he was the only connection for discs in '85.
oh,
Short of
right
maybe
on.
discovering the world, but that's where I got his number, and I said, "Can I get some discs from you?" He says, "Yeah, yeah, we got this new course down in Santa Cruz." And oh, the campus? No, this new one, De La Villa. Come down there on the first Saturday. We're having a tournament. So I went down there. It was December of '85. I remember distinctly the first time I went there to
Okay.
buy discs specifically for all me and my buddies in Hayward, because we were throwing lids, and that's it. So I went down there and I bought like 6 arrows for $6 a piece from Tom Shot, and
Wow.
that was gold. It's like, if you lost
Sure.
those, you spend all day looking for them. You
Yeah.
don't lose those. But that was my first De La Vega trip. Was a monthly in '85, and I met
Okay.
Marty
So
was there.
Mace, we're
So
just going
whole
to skip that section in the
Yeah,
career
because I
topics.
wouldn't say it's a dead zone, but it was a quiet zone.
Right.
I was playing ultimate, but ultimate and freestyle. Glenn would come down and we'd freestyle all day long. And I went up to Vancouver probably between 80 and 86. I probably went up there 4 or 5 times for the summer
Wow.
and played in
Okay.
their overall tournament. So, it was freestyle mostly back then. Glenn and
So
I would play in that tournament.
I would love all those records to be kept somewhere and collected somewhere because, you know,
That's in the Canadian archives. Yeah.
but what I'm saying, like, we've got like disc golf through the PDGA, we've got the records in Statmando. They go just for disc golf events that are posted, but they don't really ever mention. There might be disc golf events in overall events that get
Right.
collected, but all this lore that you're talking about, this is incredible. Like this was an
Yeah.
active, fertile. If
Frisbee.
someone just looked at your PDGA records, they thought you just appeared in '86 as an M2
Right.
player having to play pro.
No, there was,
Not
yeah,
knowing any of the
no
backstory.
camps back then. Yeah, that's one thing I say. I never played amp.
No,
But
well,
yeah,
I mean, like
by
what
86,
everybody played pro.
right. So I was, already at my prime in 86. So all those years from 80 to 86 was my good years of freestyle, distance. And, I was just out playing, even competition wasn't really a thing, you
Right.
just played because
Just go and have a
that's what
good
we
time
did
with
was
your buddies.
freestyle.
But
So I
tournaments
would
are the
say,
great ways to meet new people, and that's where you buy
right.
discs. And how far is that drive from where you live, you and your boys, to De La Vega?
That's about an hour and 10 minutes without traffic. So, but it's, but I
You
went, that's one stat that I would say is like, as soon as I went there in 85, I went every month to their monthly for 10 years straight, unless
nice.
something happened. So I missed a few, but it's like, that was the only thing happening for
Well,
disc golf.
the De
So
La
every
Vega
first Saturday, I'm going to Santa Cruz.
the
It
De La
was
Vega
like,
disc golf course was established, I believe, in '86, and you were one of the original members. You're member number 28 for all those paying attention out there. You were a fundamental supporter right from the start. An hour and 10 minutes
Amazing.
on a fast day.
on a fast day. But, but like I say, there was nothing, we had no tournaments except, a couple a year. And so all of a sudden I met these people in Santa Cruz and they played once a month and I was there. And, there was, 20 people maybe. We played the short course and then the long course and then a cooler round. And it was Tufty and Tom Schott and Marty was there and Merle was there. And it was just, that was the best time was to go there. That was the only time I had real, Frisbee contact outside of, Glenn and I doing whatever we did. That was like 2, 3 or a month at a time. He would come down or I'd go up there. But so that 80, you know, at 85, that's when it all started in De La Viega. But before that, it was freestyle.
So let's just jump right into it. 1986 Santa Cruz Open. You play your first ever. Well, the according to the Statmando PDJ database, this is your first recorded
Yeah.
event. There's I believe 30 players, and you come seventh. Johnny Lissaman wins. You've already said his name. Steve Tufty second, R.J. Jerez third, Mike Travers fourth, Commoner David Damon fifth. Talk about those guys. Like you'd already known the players.
It's like a who's who right there.
That is a who's who.
Bay Area who's who.
So give us a quick impression if you remember the time Johnny Lissaman. What was your first kind of knowledge of him? Because I think that might have been one of his first tournaments.
That time. So he was because
Oh,
yeah, from that very was one of the tournament. I still remember, shooting, tied with the Lissamans for the first round, and one of them came up to me and said, "Good round." I remember that. It sticks with you because I was just a kid out of nowhere and fell back a little, but it was, Johnny was or Jeff and Johnny were like, the gods from LA. They were steady, they were good, and then RJ Jerez, he was a young kid. He was like the first young phenom. He was probably 15, 16 at the time. He came up playing through his dad. And then who else was on that list?
Michael Travers.
Oh, Michael Travers,
He's pretty good too.
Of all. Yeah, he was, he'd been playing longer than all of us, and he was the old school guy who could play as well as anybody. He was in his prime in those days. But it was,
And then
That tournament
Conrad
was
Damon, who seems
Conrad.
to have found
Conrad.
his fountain of youth.
Yeah, the
You
side
never
armor.
think of him as that old, but people still mention him. Like it just
Yeah.
it's hard. It doesn't register in my mind that
No,
he's
even
in your
still
age
today,
range.
you
You
see
know,
him and you think he's still a teenager.
right?
He's timeless. But back then, he was still the sidearm king. He had by far the best sidearm of anybody. Nobody could throw that far, and so he's always been around as long as I have. He's always been there playing.
And what
But that
about so?
tournament was
Sorry.
no, that tournament was like I said, my first real tournament because I'd been to that tournament probably for the previous 4 or 5 years as a spectator because I never quite I was
Right.
just a kid. I didn't know how to sign up. I didn't know anybody. It was like, oh, I'm just going to go watch, like we did in 1980. We went and watched it, and it was the best time. We camped out. We slept under the stairs at Cabrillo College to go watch the tournament, and when the four of us drove down, and then every year, I'd wait for that tournament, and back then the way I would hear about it was in the AAA magazine. It would be in the back, a little tiny thing. Of all things, it's like there was. How would you hear about it? Because I didn't know anybody. It was it's like, oh, Santa Cruz having a flying disc tournament.
That's
Wow.
So
cool.
That
it
is
was just
wild.
because I was kind of on the sidelines. I didn't compete it because there was no work competition to go to, and so for years I just go watch. And it's like, wow, that's good. I want to do that, and I'd play. But by '85, I was connected enough. I'd started playing, and so I entered or '86, what it was, and
86.
and then after that it was all in.
Well,
Wow.
that brings us to a good point.
Yes.
1986 World Flying Disc Championships, August of '86. You took fourth out of 31. It was your second event. Oh wait, your second event later that summer again at Santa Cruz, and you improve on your debut with a solid fourth place finish as well, tied with Mike Travers, who finished fourth at the Santa Cruz Open. The winner was Frank
Yeah,
Aguilera, who was also the distance record holder at the time in 1984, and you were he was second by one stroke to Craze. Wow, it's just like the names just keep popping up. Like it's
yeah. I mean, and that one's latent with stories too. That the
keep
thing I
Do
remember
coming.
tell.
about
Let's go.
Do
Travers,
tell.
Travers came back to tie me on that last round, and I remember for some reason we got something. And we got a pair of socks. It's one of those as a prize, right? That's one of the weird things I remember. But I got to play with Crazy and Frank in the Browns, and that was impressive. But
Was so people might not know this. So the Frank Aguilera one time distance, he set the record in 84 with an arrow first before
Right.
Sam said it. What was his like? Did you obviously knew that he was the world distance champion? That was your kind of favorite sport, right? Was he a, kind of an idol at that time for you? Like so finishing the
no,
tournament.
because there wasn't all that hype and info. I I'm sure I knew he had the title, but I'd never met him before until then, and then we were all playing golf together, and he and Crazy knew each other, and they were a little at each other's nerves. Still remember, on one tee, Crazy went and sat down in this one spot. Well, you sat there while I was teeing, but
Really?
I didn't know those guys. I was just a kid coming down playing with all these real frisbee players, and I'm just some guy that has been playing forever, and I think I'm good, but I don't know. But that
was
that's
was he
one of my
going by crazy at the time?
yeah.
Okay,
But that's
that's
one of
how
my
he.
bragging points in life. Is one of my bragging points in life because I beat Frank Aguilera in the distance competition when he was the record holder. I believe he was
At,
still the record
at that
in
event.
'86. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's one
Nice.
of those
That's a
things
good
that
one.
later in life it occurred to me. Wait a minute, I did that. At the time it was like yeah, whatever. But Crazy beat me throwing AVRs. I was throwing lightnings, and he was throwing AVRs, and he beat me in the distance competition. I got second. He got first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
And
Do you remember how far you threw?
it's like, what's that?
Do you remember
No,
how?
it's probably maybe 400 feet or no, I don't remember, but it wasn't that far.
At the
But
time,
I do
though.
remember that was looking back, that might have been like the highlight of my whole frisbee career because after that it turned to golf. But then because I ended up second in the overall in that tournament. And that
I
was
did
like,
not know that. See, we don't have access to those
they
records. I
don't
don't
have
know
them.
where those
So
are.
that's what I'm saying. I was a frisbee player, and I, accumulated. At that point, that was like the best I ever did in a frisbee tournament at the time.
Yeah.
Beating Frank, of course, not crazy. He was throwing these pink AVRs, beating me when I was throwing the lightnings. But
He
I
just had
feel
an
like those were
ability
like
to
the best years.
manufacture whatever shot he needed at the time, too. I mean,
Yeah,
it's I
yeah, and
played.
he was.
I got lucky enough to play with him. I think he was my first at the Kansas City Wide Open. They used to have 90 people. That was a full field and open, and they put at least an All Star on every card. And so the first year I played it
Nice,
in '96, I'm pretty
right?
certain it was either Crazy my first year and Bomba my second, or Flip Flop it, because those were my first two in that tournament. And like I'd read about them both. I'd seen Craze. I'd seen Craze at October Frizz, and if you want to see him in his element, like that's his element. But he would
Yeah,
do his award speech would include his award speech would be for winning, which he did several times at that event. It would include freestyle routine and all of his normal theatrics, including brushing the teeth
nice,
and just like a 30-minute acceptance speech, and it was part of
nice,
Oktoberfest. I mean,
right?
it was
Yeah,
just part of it. Okay, here we
he's
go.
a showman.
Ready, get
Yeah,
ready, buckle
yeah,
in.
that's what makes him so special. He's a showman. A lot of people
Hundred
aren't.
percent, hundred
I'm
percent.
not, but he is, and he did it well. Always has. But when I was playing with him, I knew of his reputation, I'm sure, but it was only a year or two of reputation. It wasn't much going on back then, so nobody had like a legacy yet. It's like, oh, this is
Right.
one of those good players. Oh, this guy can throw far. Oh, this guy's good. Well, okay,
I mean,
but
it's only your second event, so you don't really know who's who, I guess.
yeah,
Now, looking back, of course, I can see all the data, but at the time, you don't know. You're going to an event the second time
right.
in a year
And
at the
find it
same.
playing.
Now,
Right.
you play. You said we won distance, or you came second in distance. What do you remember your place in the other events that you played?
I was I was in the finals of MTA, I think. I don't remember what I got, and I
Okay.
freestyled with Glenn, I'm sure. And golf is there on the record, right? Whatever fourth,
Hmm.
and I don't remember what else, but I just remember that I was so proud of myself getting second because like I say, I was a frisbee player, and that's what we did. We played all the events, and so looking back, that's still one of my greatest accomplishments was getting second
Nice,
overall back then.
nice.
And
That's
like
pretty
I say, that
amazing,
was back
man.
when
And
I
I'm
was young and
sure,
in my prime.
I mean, just the people that have popped up in this story, it's pretty amazing. But I'm sure that there's also some folks that were maybe further down the list that are still, household names in your neighborhood, and in disc golf generally speaking.
Yeah, so that's kind of what started my tournament career was playing in that one. I feel like, and then after that, it started more tournaments started appearing, and like I say, I played the Santa Cruz Monthly all the time, and then I got to be a regular there, and there'd be 20 or 30 of us every weekend, every first Saturday. I mean, and it all just kind of blossomed from there. Then there was tournaments in Sacramento, and then occasionally there'd be more tournaments, and then come the '90s, there's more tournaments. But
Okay, well that gets us to 94 now. We're 8 years in of playing, a few tournaments here and there, but professional at the pro level. There's only one level, basically all those tournaments. People don't know that now. There's like 16 divisions at a
right,
tournament. It was just one, two with the women, and
yeah,
then
it was
masters
never
three.
AMs,
You guys had enough older generation that you can support grandmasters at all the time, but
which
still.
nobody paid attention to then or now. So, but
But 1994. It's a
Come on, it's
huge.
a much bigger division now.
I did say that.
Seriously.
1994. It's a huge event. There's 57. I don't know. They're all top pros, but certainly the top of the 57 are the top pros in the well, if not the world, like around. And you take tied for third.
which one
You
was
remember
this?
that? The '94 Santa Cruz Masters Cup. I
Yeah.
can't remember. I can't remember who wins. I didn't
Well,
write
by
it
that
down
time, I'd
here.
been playing there for how many years, and I considered myself, oh, I'm going to win this every year. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. But, like I say, never quite conquered it. So I think I tied Bombo that year.
Yes, you did. So it's just that leads me into the question. Um, do you remember the first time you met Bamba?
I don't remember the first time because he was, again, there was more and more people coming up from LA for this tournament. And so the first time I don't remember, so I knew him by that time,
Okay.
but,
So is this kind of the first time getting to know him then?
I wouldn't say that was the first time. I'm just saying,
Okay.
if you go back in the stats, you'll see he's been there for 3 to 5 or 7 years. I don't know. So, but he was one of those guys.
What was your early impressions of him?
Well, he was one of those good players that comes up from LA, and and I don't, I'm not a real, show off, glad to meet you, how you doing guy. I'm just like, oh, it's one of those guys. Okay, whatever. I'll just stand back and do my thing. They can do their thing. So, it probably took me a couple years to get to know him, but by that time, I felt like I knew him.
Okay.
So he'd been coming up for a few years, but for me, I've always played there, and I've always considered myself just a local guy, and can get hot or felt good, but never quite conquered them. And so every year, a couple of more players would come up from LA, and he was one of them, and he kept coming, and he's still coming up. But we immediately became friends once we started talking. So I probably didn't even talk to him the first year or two, and then it's like we got played together in the same card, and then got to know him, and you don't instantly bond with somebody who you don't know right away.
Sure.
In a tournament,
Totally.
Still, but I don't remember the first time.
Okay.
I got a great piece of Rico family. I got a great piece of Rico family trivia for you.
Please.
I talked to Stevie earlier this week, and Cam Bomba's son qualified for USDGC this year.
Nice.
And Stevie's trying to figure out whether or not he's going. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Your nephew is going to the championship, and you don't know whether you're going to take a week off and go and carry his bag for him? Come on, bro.
Yeah.
You got to go, So
right. This is
I'm going to do some more pestering. Yeah. But that's pretty amazing. I mean, I've seen Cam play a couple times, and I've seen his AM results at the Memorial a couple times in the last 4 or 5 years, and kid's got game. There's no two ways about it.
He does,
but just like his dad and his brother. And so, not surprising, not at all surprising.
I know. I would love to see him take off and put in the time that it takes. That's all it is, right? So he's got game, but you got to put in the time.
For sure.
So the winner, I wrote in my notes. I just wasn't looking. Stokely. Now you got to remember the first time you met him.
Again, he was one of those LA guys that they come up and they're in their clique and they're all with their LA guys. So you don't necessarily just walk right in and become one of them. And so all those guys, there's a whole list of them that eventually you get to know them. But
did he not?
I still remember.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I still remember. Stokely specifically. He was a very big time player. He threw the underhand putt back then, the horseshoe putt. He threw it like a bullet.
Yeah.
It would go right out of those.
I forgot about that horseshoe putt.
Wow.
So he was a big time player. He was one of the first young guys who was really remarkably better because he could throw farther. He had that great sidearm. And
but he moved up to Northern California, didn't he? Move to Grass Valley for a while. He got married. He got married on the top of the world.
On the top of the world, yeah. I was there for that one.
You were.
That was a good deal. Yeah.
Nice.
But he was, like I say, the whole LA generation of people coming up every year. Be a few more people, and then I would finally get to play with people and get to know them. But it took me a while to get to know all these guys. But there'd be 10 more every year.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize that it's kind of almost erased at this point, but there was obvious hotbeds in different parts of the country, and now it's kind of smoothed out. At least coastal, you can say that there's not that many breaks in the action between here and there, like between San Diego and Vancouver. There's pretty steady competition just about anywhere you stop. But for a long time, you came up in the second hotbed of California, and it wasn't very far behind. And I wonder if anybody at the time even realized that, there was a really strong group in both places, and it just kept building. And, I remember with my association with the USDGC for probably the first 3 years, nobody from California came. And they were like, why do we need to go? What do we need to go out there for? We heard about this stupid
Right.
rope and blah blah blah, and then they'd all come and they're like, "We'll be back next year. We'll be back
Right.
next year." And and it slowly started. But like I just got home yesterday from Raleigh, and that was another hot spot. The Carolinas, and like there's so many people in these different places that didn't really know anybody from those other areas because they didn't
Right.
have to travel. All you had to do was go to a
Yeah.
local course. Like all you had to do was go to Santa Cruz, and you were going to get all
Right.
you wanted on any given Saturday. And then eventually, like this is a time frame that we're talking about. Like when people actually watch this that are the badasses right now, they're going to go, "What do you mean there was only 2 tournaments all year long?" There's
Yeah.
like 2 tournaments every
Right.
day now, and
There were 2
5 or
overall
6 on the
tournaments.
weekends.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's crazy how far it's come.
it's a huge
So,
gap.
but yeah, that's a good point about the pockets, because it was LA was like the mecca, it was probably one of the 2 or 3 in the whole nation at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so me being up here, it was just me and a few friends playing. Everything was down there. It's like, oh, these gods are coming up from LA. They're so much better than all the rest. They're like real players, and we're just kids playing frisbee. And so eventually, we kind of melded. But it was for a while there. It was like anything to do with La Mirada. Those guys are real. You get the disc golf or Discovering the World magazine and see the cover of somebody playing. And it's like there was no publications, there was no information, there was just like, okay, La Mirada, that's where it's at. And
The home of all the living the test pilots. I mean, still to this day,
yeah,
there's people out there testing discs. And here, try this. Tell me what you think. I mean, Craig Levis told
right,
me stories. I mean, just story on top of story on top of story about all these different discs that they would go to the park after school, and these guys had them for them to check them out and to throw them.
right,
And I was just like, wow. So you grew up as a test pilot, and he was like, I never really
yeah,
thought about it, but yeah, and
right,
it's really amazing, to see. And then there's several generations of that now, but back then, it was like Craig and Scott and Sam and Steve Valencia and a few others, Willie and those guys, even before the Ricos, even before RJ, I mean, well, and
right.
RJ was kind of in that age range as well, though, so pretty
Yeah, he
amazing.
was a young gun, but
What
it's come a
I
long
like your
way.
point about growing up in these little, like you're saying, the little pockets, and also the difficulty in really kind of tying the bonds between North and South. There was pretty distinct identities going on between the two, but certainly, I mean, the Lissman brothers had been coming. At least Johnny had been coming up since '86, and Jeff, I guess he came up later in '87 or '88. They've been coming up regular, and a lot of people have been coming up, but they moved in '92, and they kind of like became entrenched. You've already said, I don't know if it was you talked about this before off camera, but Jeff Lissaman was kind of the one. If you have a lot of seconds, it's because Jeff. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah,
It's because
Jeff
of
was
Jeff.
the
So
Climo of his day, I would say. He show up and that he was going to be hard to beat, and so he won a lot of the early NorCal tournaments because he was a steady putter. He was a good steady player. Didn't throw far, but he didn't make mistakes. And so, yeah, when he moved up here, you know, he was already the man to beat. But then he was like here all the time. So, and then
Hey,
if he
so
wasn't on, Johnny would be on.
let me
right.
ask you a listening question. Did it blow your mind the first time you saw them roll a Stingray down the front of Top of the World as much as it blew my mind the first time I ever saw it?
No, because I'm sure I was doing the same thing, and I was like, I'm as good as these guys. So the Listmans never did anything that blew my mind, but they did it right all the time. They
So
didn't
consistent,
they didn't make mistakes, but they didn't do anything that was spectacular. They
Right.
were just
steady, steady,
steady,
steady.
steady, steady, steady. Whereas I'd be a nervous kid, and I'd make mistakes. I'd throw far, but I wouldn't make my putts. You know,
And could
they were
you?
steady.
Did one of them always like? Did one of them or the other have a mustache? Did they all? Did they both have a mustache at the same time? Was there an
I,
easy way to
I always
different
go
other
back
than
to
their throwing style? Because one's left, one's right-handed. Like when you're talking to them, is it that easy to separate them?
no, back then I don't think they had facial hair, and I would get them
Okay.
confused. but it
Okay.
didn't take long until I could figure them out. But yeah,
Thank
because again, they
goodness
were,
they throw different styles.
yeah, but they were, they were like the really good LA players, and so I didn't know them at first at all. It took a few years at least to warm up to those guys.
Okay.
But
Yeah, we're getting them on soon. As soon as they get a video camera, I mean a computer
and they're
camera.
way up there in the hills where they don't have
Yeah.
internet. So.
Yeah, he goes. We've tried several times like a couple weeks ago to get them on, and they couldn't get signal on their phones. And he goes, "Well, I got a computer without a camera." So I sent him a link the other day, and I go, "Just buy this $31 camera off of Amazon, and all your problems will be solved." He's like, "We got
Yeah.
internet."
Do they?
Yeah,
Let's hope
so
Yeah.
that
No, we don't
that
see them much anymore. It's like once every 3 years, one of them will show up at, say hi at a Sacramento tournament or something. But they're happy doing what they're doing. They're out of the sport, I suppose. But
well, they're
you can't
building a
say.
course. They're
Yeah,
continuing to work on their course and their cabins and stuff. And they were
right. And
they were like, "You guys got to come and visit." And I'm like, "Hey, when
they
I'm in the
got a
area
great.
next time, I will."
Well, up where they're at, it's a great lifestyle. I'm totally jealous. I wish I'd have gone up there when they did, but I stayed in the city.
okay. Yeah. Maybe one day still. I don't know.
Yeah,
And one
exactly.
day's
There's still hope.
so
But we're gonna make a big jump here.
yes, do it.
1999, your first year playing Masters.
But
I think this is probably
finally,
about the time I met you too. In fact, I definitely played that Alfaro's Masters Cup. But okay, so this is something like I got the utmost respect for this for everybody that did this. But we're gonna talk about being an Iron Man.
the Iron Man, yeah.
We're
I
gonna
mean,
talk
back
about
then,
54 holes in a day at De La
right?
Viega. And if you haven't
Yeah,
played De La Viega, 27 is more than enough.
right.
Especially if you play like me and Paul and you lose half your bag down the valley on the
Yeah,
round. I got a great story. Hole 20, the first one on the parking lot, the turnover shot
right.
there.
Yeah,
I play in hole 20. I throw this shot and I just saw it off on the turnover way too sharp. And I cut into that gap and I'm going down. I'm going down. I'm going down in that valley. And that guy goes, "Keep on going. Keep on going." Okay, that's about the last place I saw it. So I kept on going past there. And it occurred to me, it's probably in my best interest to not find this shot.
yeah. It
So
does. It occurs to you about that point.
but I still kept looking down where I was at because he said it was the last place. I was sure that it had to be deeper. And so I kept looking, and they finally didn't blow the horn, but whatever. They said, "All right, that's enough. Come to this spot where he saw you last." And I came to the spot. I took my stroke. I threw up. It probably took me 2 shots to get to the basket and then a drop in, and I moved on. By the time I got done with Top of the World and I was getting ready to tee off on hole one, my disc was already in Lost and Found. So 7 holes later, 7 holes
Yeah,
later, I got to pick it up, put it back
yeah.
in the bag, and go lose it again.
Nice. That's great. And now it's
So, and
gone,
I
right?
mean, I tried, I did
Yeah,
my part, but it was,
that's what
they
you
were
got to
like, "All right,
do.
come over here."
But to play 54 holes of that in like what's going on there?
I
Well,
don't
I
even
mean,
have
for
a
starters,
comparison.
a big point for all of us can understand that back then the Masters age was 35.
Sure.
So we were
Right.
younger then. We weren't 40-year-olds. So, but even back then, at that age, I was still like, more golf is better all the time. Let's play, let's play, let's play. So it wasn't even that big of a deal at the time. It was just like, heck yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's play.
Wow.
So to clarify, anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, you could play Open in the morning and Masters in the afternoon, or vice versa. And a few of you did it. I mean, I know you
like
did
two
it, and
separate
Russell did it,
tournaments, entries. Yeah.
and
And
I
that was,
think that.
for me, I was like, heck yeah, of course I'm going to do it. And they didn't do it but a couple of years at best.
But I was there for 2 of those years. I was there 99 and 2000 and 2001. And I vividly
Yeah.
remember just going, "Holy cow, you guys are iron." And then we all stayed at that same hotel one of those years there on Pacific, looking out over the the hotel where you keep grabbing a room and a room, and ended up with like 12 people staying in it by the time we
Right?
got at the
Oh, yeah.
courtyard and that other room. And yeah, that was, I think I stayed with you guys there a couple times. That was epic.
Nice. That was a good one. Yeah. I mean, that's what we did back then. We all shared 6 of us in a room.
Sweet.
And everybody had a bed. I mean, they just kept,
Oh,
oh, we'll put this room
it
on there
didn't
too.
matter. You sleep on the floor. You know, it's all good.
Oh, and I did plenty of that.
Yeah,
Plenty of that.
come a
But yeah,
long
that was
ways.
great. So in NPO, you took 15th to 78. You were between Ron Russell and Dr. Rick. You had a three-stroke. You were three back from Ron Russell and two ahead of Dr. Rick. And then in Masters, that was an open. And then in Masters, you tied for 14th, 16 strokes behind Russell. How does he smoke it that hard
Really, he
in
was
the
that much different.
in that
That's
second round? Yeah,
crazy.
in the Masters.
Well, he was, you know, he was on top of his game back then. So who knows? Maybe he was tired.
He was on top of his game back then for sure.
Yeah.
So this is okay. This is Paul's note. I noticed you didn't play NPM for a few years after this. Did this double duty experience scare you off of the Masters for a while?
No, I was stubborn. You know, it's like, no, I could beat all. I was still good. You know, I could beat these guys. I'm not going Masters. That's soft. You know, I didn't want to go Masters, and you know, I put it off for a long time. You know, going into Masters 40, and I think maybe Masters 50. Or, you know, I kind of dragged my feet for a little bit, but you know, by the time I hit 60, it's like, let me in. You know, it's like, I'm all in. But those early days, like, heck no. Masters guys, they're old. I'm still as good as everybody else.
Okay, so while we're talking about this, now the tournaments are all MP 60 plus, MP 55, whatever. I personally miss the old nomenclature days. You know, I now I'm playing, or you know, if they still have the division, I would want to be called the Grandmaster. I'm sorry,
Right.
I want to
Yeah,
soak that in because that's a title.
I know. Yeah. And for me, you know, being a young guy and seeing the Grandmasters, I always knew that as an old term. So I've kind of taken it as, well, I'm a Grandmaster. I don't like that. You know? So it's, you know, looking in the mirror and seeing actually how old I am. It's like, so you know, I don't miss not being called a Grandmaster, but I guess it's, you know, if you look at the numbers and they say MP 60, it's the same thing. It's a reality of how old you actually are. But
Well,
Okay,
as a trophy maker, it's easier to put MP60 on there than Grandmasters. It
it's
just
true.
takes up
yeah,
way
I'm
less
sure it is.
space.
It does.
Nice.
You know,
That's
look at
good.
the layout. So,
Yeah.
Berk, talking about Berkeley. First of all, it's a you, well. Let's just go right into the berserkly best pair doubles because I was going to ask you questions about Glenn Whitlock, but you've already secured the link anyway. But this is on record. You guys really did well there the first couple of years. So I think you have three finishes. Anyways, you get your first PDGA win in '88. Now, did Whitler stay at your place that event?
Say again?
Did Whitler stay at your place that event? Were you
Oh,
that
yeah.
close?
He
Okay.
lived with me basically for weeks
Okay.
on end.
And so then you went up to the Western Canadian Open after that and played in that event.
Yeah. So I'd go up there and stay with him or somewhere, and he'd come stay with me, and we'd hitchhike all around. And you know, we were
That's
Okay. So
freestyle partners.
it's pretty well established at this point for sure.
Yeah.
do you guys played well as disc golf partners too? And I know you played well as
Yeah.
freestyle
Yeah. I mean,
partners.
he was good back then, and I was, you know, I was good, maybe inconsistent. So his consistency would hold us up. But yeah, I do remember, you know, we won the first couple of years. You know, we were obviously the team to beat because, you know, neither of us were, you know, he didn't work. I didn't work much back then. So we were all just hanging out. We go to the course all the time and just play disc. That's all we did. You know, if we weren't golfing, we were freestyling.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know how many teams were in that event at those first couple of years, but it couldn't have been more than 10 or 15. But, you know, we were obviously the team to beat. And then I think third year we finally took second. You know, and it was, you know, those were the days when, you know, it was Glenn and I, we were just like one all the time.
I mean, we can. You've got a lot of Glenn stories, but there are other doubles players that you played with, right, Mace?
Oh yeah, and you
Yeah.
know what? I'm just going to point out to you, Pete, that 80% of one page of a 6-page script is dedicated to berserkly best pairs, and you
Nice.
know
Well, that's,
that's that's one of those things. I mean, I heard Bob Jerez told me about it long before anybody else. So I was hanging out with him one day, and I think that it's got to be very similar to what we used to talk about, and we will get to this in a second because you did participate at Round Rock one year, but that was the way we used to talk about it. It was like, who are you going to doubles? Who are you taking to Round Rock?
Right,
Who's your
exactly.
partner? And we would talk
Right.
about it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, even longer
Right.
sometimes. Like
Yeah.
looking like you guys did for the 2 events back in the old days. But like I've been to the Berserkly Best Pairs a few different times, and it blows my mind that they still let you play in that park with all the walkers and all the action in that park. It's such a narrow piece of ground.
It
But
is. It's a tough place to play. And that's
dude,
what put it into the singles tournament. The Aquatic Park Open it was too hard to play, but the
yeah,
doubles we still get it. We still managed to do it. You know, we
because
do it
it's
over Super
spring
Bowl weekend, so it's never
early.
quite Super Bowl weekend, and it's never quite that crowded. But that tournament I've won more than any other tournament. I've won it at least 8 times. I don't know what the record shows, but I won it. You know,
Oh,
many
you got a
times in different
bunch.
divisions. And
We're gonna go through it. First one I want to start with. You partnered with Mike Loya in 1995. Have you seen or
well,
heard from
that
Mike in a long
first one
time?
was Glenn Whitlock, right?
Oh,
Glenn
excuse
and
me.
I
Well,
won
yeah.
it.
Your
Yeah.
first non-Glenn win.
Okay.
Your first
We won it
non-Glenn win,
twice.
pardon me,
How
was
many
with
times did
Mike
Glenn and I
Loya.
win? Yeah.
1985, Mike Loya.
95.
Excuse me, 95. Have you heard? Has anybody heard from him lately? I hadn't heard anybody
Yeah,
mention
he's
his name
still
in
playing.
forever.
He's still playing. He's one of that guys that he plays as good as ever without ever playing. He's one of those naturals.
That's amazing.
Nice.
But yeah,
Yeah, I miss running into that guy. If you see him next time, tell him I
yeah,
said hi.
I will.
So
It's been a while too.
next on the list, you played 01, 03, and 2014 with Fiedler
Yeah,
and won with him.
Those are some big numbers. 2001. This is a spoiler alert. That is up to that point your most successful year on the tour.
was it?
So getting this win with Fiedler to start off the year is a good way
Yeah,
to get out. And,
yeah. He and I played a
12 events,
lot
4
back then. We
wins.
were like the bums of the course back then. We played all the time on Berkeley because he lives
Sweet.
there, and I'd be there all the time, and we played multiple times a week. So naturally, we played together in that tournament.
Nice.
Yeah, so you beat Bama and Stevie by 2 in that one. In
Nice.
03, you won by 4 strokes against Bruce Nisley and Josh Anthon. And,
That's a good one.
that is
Yeah.
a good one, without a
Right.
doubt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Josh before
anytime
his
you can
prime.
beat Anthon, that's probably how we
Yeah,
feel around
exactly.
here about beating Nolan.
Right? Yeah. You catch them before they get too good, then. But after that, they don't even look back.
So in 2014, you also played with Fiedler, and you also played 10 events. You cashed in all of them. First time playing in your playing history that you did that, and then 4 ahead of Scott Riley, Earl Weaver, and Doug Warner. 14
Nice.
ahead of Travers and Oates
2014.
We won by
That's-
14.
against
Really?
You beat Travers and Oates by 14, and you beat Earl Weaver and Doug Warner by 4.
Yeah.
So both of y'all were playing good. Both teams were playing
Yeah.
good.
But you,
Nice.
again, you will go on that year to have, you're going to play 10 events, according to the PDJ, according to StatsMando, all of them are cash. And this is the first time in your playing history that you'll cash at every event. How's that feel?
Nice.
Do you remember that?
That's a good, solid record right there. It's nothing that I hang my hat on, but it's like, okay, I do look at that. It's like, oh, I didn't cash a couple events, but because that's it's not the goal. The goal is to play well, but it is something to look back on. It's like, oh, I didn't
Nice.
cash in a couple of events, or a cashing streak, and all that's fun, but it's not
Nice
you know,
yardstick,
it's not
for
the driving
sure.
factor.
All right, now we're going to enter the Oates era.
Oh
You
yeah,
played with him in Masters in 17, 18, and 19. And then you guys dropped back in 20 to MPO. But in Masters in 2017, you guys won by 24 strokes over Kevin
Seriously?
Couch, RIP Kevin, and Earl Weaver again.
Wow.
Scott, I love it that these names, I love so many people from
Yeah.
your neighborhood, and these names just keep popping up.
That's
Like
us,
Scott
yeah.
Riley. Scott Riley's one of my favorite people for sure.
Yeah,
And
he's still
so
going good.
the next year, you played with Oates again, and Scott and Kevin trimmed 8 strokes off of your victory margin. It was only 16. And then in
Sorry.
19, you won by 13 over Fiedler and Rob Byers. And then you guys jumped back to open in 20 and took second with Oates again. 4 strokes ahead of James Proctor in fourth. And
We beat Proctor. That's another
Proctor.
accomplishment.
There's a thing, because there's
Yeah.
on Infinite Discs official blog, you can go to the member profile. There's a little quote from him saying he grew up in Rohnert Park with a lot of old school golfers. Roger Kanzler, which autocorrect says Roger Cancer. Sorry about that on the notes. Sorry, Raj. John Child, Peter Sontag, and Andy Kreml. So, you're on the list of those guys where these young guns. People don't. I don't know how well his name is known, but he's one of those hot players, and
Yeah.
you
yeah, he
you beat
actually
him that
Very good
time.
around.
Beat him
he
that time.
caddied for Evelina on Sunday.
Oh,
I
cool.
saw that. Yeah, we were enjoying that. I was watching with Roger, and we all were commenting on what James was doing.
Right
But
on.
yeah, it was fun to watch James grow up, and it's even more fun to watch him become what he has. Such a star now. So he's the guy I root for when I watch.
Cool.
Yeah, obviously. That makes total sense.
There's a
Well,
point.
wrapping up, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the 80% of this page with a
Yes.
2024 MPO winner with Toby Parks by 10 strokes ahead of second. Fiedler came in third, and Bob Montes took fourth.
I kind
I
of
was
And
sick as
condensed
a
the
dog that
notes.
year. I was so sick that weekend.
oh
I
yeah,
only showed up to not let Toby down. I was just dragging. I couldn't do anything. I was hosting the party at my work, and I was just like, you know, I wouldn't not let it happen. So I was just like sitting in the corner, just sick. The party was going on, and I showed up just barely dragging.
Oh,
But Toby
man.
did all the work that time. So.
Oh, that's hero status. Not all heroes
that's
wear
like a
capes.
whole look. This is a whole page all the way to there.
Yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure.
There's a lot
How
of
many
With the
stuff.
wins is that?
Circly best pairs.
There's a lot of wins.
That's a
There's
Yeah,
lot of action.
We've got certain eras. I've broken it down. There's the
but
Fiedler
that's
era,
yeah,
the
that's a
Oates era.
lot of years. 30
I
Um,
have
some
to
years of
say
playing
too
that
that
yeah.
tournament.
I've showed up out there twice while that tournament was on, and I hung out and walked with Roger and a few of you guys, and then I went and watched the Super Bowl with him. And man, it's just such a good time because there's just like I'm gonna get like 30 or 40 hugs before the day is over because
Right.
all these people that I
Yeah.
hadn't seen since last year or year before or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing when you go into these other hotbeds as a person that doesn't live in the area and you just take note and you're just like going, holy shit, look at all this competition here, and it's not just in the open division. It's in obviously in every division now, going all the way to, to the pioneers of the sport, obviously.
Yeah. And I would say in our area, we don't have a lot of tournaments, specifically at Aquatic Park. We can't really because of the pedestrian traffic. So that one tournament, everybody shows up for. So for us, if you don't go play San Francisco Safari, that's like, we don't have a singles tournament at Berkeley. So the nearest tournament, they have them in San Jose now, but it's basically not a lot of tournament play in our area due to the limited amount of course space.
So
So
how far a drive was it to San Francisco for you?
San Francisco's not bad. It's more traffic. We judge
Yeah.
things by time as far as
Yeah,
travel.
yeah.
So it's like 15, 18 miles, but it could take me an hour to get there.
Okay.
So
How long does
San
it take you to
Francisco's
get to
easy.
Sonoma? To
That was like an hour and a half, hour and
Wow.
15 maybe.
It's
It's
worth
only
every minute, though, isn't
50
it?
miles. Yeah. But again, now, there's Stafford Lake. That's like,
That's the one I was
tournament
talking
up
about,
there.
actually, Stafford
Right.
Lake.
So I can get there in an hour and 10, hour and 15 without traffic.
That place is
So
epic.
it is. It really is.
Oh.
So
And
that's
we're
one thing
living
I've
it.
never really thought about. But we're missing tournaments. We don't have a lot of tournaments there.
Yeah.
Travel.
Before Google Maps and all of this Google Earth and everything like that, Microsoft had a program called Streets and Trips. and Terry Roddy came over. Terry Roddy was in town working the Byron Nelson PGA Tour. This is probably 25 years ago, and he had Streets and Trips on his computer, and he's like, dude, you got to check out this program. He whips out his laptop, brings it with him, and shows me. Like, he's that amped up about Streets and Trips. And as a traveler, it's understandable. Well,
Yeah.
I had on my screensaver at the time, I had that photo from T1 looking across the lake and looking at the hill on the other side of the road of Stafford Lake.
Nice.
And he goes,
Yeah.
"Where's that?" And I go, "Get your program and plug in Stafford Lake, and you tell me where it is." And I'll be
Right.
damned if it didn't pull it right up. I'll never forget that, because it was like,
Right.
he was like, "Man,
Yeah.
I got to bookmark that. That looks awesome." And I said, "You have no idea. I mean,
Back
it
then
is
we were
something you got to
folding
bookmark.
maps.
You
Right.
just don't want to go by yourself."
No, you don't, especially now with the tall grass.
Yeah, I mean, because you won't find any. You'll lose half your bag if you go by yourself. You
Right.
just never find all that stuff.
But yeah, back in the day, the hardest part was finding these courses. It was like, well, you got to turn left, turn right, and it looks like a driveway, but it's in Churchill Park, and we didn't have the modern convenience, but just
Oh,
finding
man.
the course was hard.
Usually
after
you had,
heard about it.
yeah.
Right.
Well, and then a lot of times, if you had the course directory, there were like local names for roads as opposed to names that you would find on the map in your atlas and
Right.
stuff. And there was times where back when I was running Mace Man doubles, there was a few times where I showed up and totally missed the start time because I couldn't find the course.
Right.
And nobody didn't have a phone in the car. I mean,
No.
it was
Yeah.
crazy.
It was a big deal.
Struggle. Okay,
In
so the
olden
whole
days,
before you've already mentioned the San Francisco Safari, and we're going to get into that tournament specifically over the years, but just the scene, the people who ran the San Francisco Safari, that scene around there, how did that gel? Did you know those people? What was going on there?
Well, I mean, the Safari came out of Leonard's Whiff Diff tournament, right? It's
I
whatever
was
year he
thinking it
ran
might be
that
Leonard Muse that started that.
World Flying Disc tournament. He set up a course over there, and it was an overall event. And then from there, he saved the course and set up the Safari. So he started the Safari.
Oh,
It was a year or two after he ran that Whiff Dip, which I'm thinking was '88 maybe. And so he ran it for a while, and it was a temporary course we set up, and every year, and then he passed it on to whomever was next, and they ran it for a few years, and it changed hands because it was a lot of work. It was a temporary course, so. But for
That's a
years, it
great
was just me
permanent
and my
course,
truck
though.
carrying those baskets out and setting it up. I was literally the
Oh, I
basket
can imagine.
for years. And one of my fond memories was driving across the Bay Bridge, knowing that my fan belt had a crack almost 3/4 of the way through, and I had all the baskets. And if that fan belt broke, this tournament is over. Because I'd go pick them up, put them all in my truck, and then drive home, and then come back the next day and go set them all up. And, that's how we ran tournaments back then.
wow.
That was for years. And then you get volunteers, and then you got club baskets. None of that existed back then. It was just me and a few guys, and whoever had baskets. Leonard had some.
It's dedication. It's
Yeah.
organization. It's
But,
passion.
we
Of course you
wanted
wanna
a
do
tournament.
it.
You have to
Yeah.
do it yourself.
Totally.
DIY
I get it.
tournament.
I do that myself. We're running
Yeah.
a tournament later in September, 3 weeks.
Right.
We're just bringing
You
all the
got-
baskets in. We got 27 baskets.
Do it all.
Different people are
do all
coming
the work.
in. We're camping on site. It's gonna
Right.
be it's gonna be great. Madness.
Yeah.
Two definitely not safe for work kind of activities involved
Right.
in terms of the consumptions. Mace.
But
Are
that
you still
tournament,
going to Screaming
like
Heads
say-
with that?
What?
Say again.
No, there's a little
Is that
little
a
prop.
Screaming Heads ball?
To the prep, yeah. I still have a little prop here. But anyways,
So
let's get back to the
that-
tournaments though.
That Safari, like I say, came from Leonard's, Whiff Diff tournament. And then he ran it for a number of years, and then various people took over, and we had one, and then we had two. We had two really good courses that kept getting set up every year, and then eventually we expanded it to 3 or more. And then when San Francisco finally got a course in, we moved it over there. So it's been over there in those original Safari courses that actually had one hole that we called the Safari because it was so hard to do. That's all been abandoned, and now it's all on the San Francisco disc golf course. But it's been, I don't know how many years that's been in, but before that we had temporary courses we set up every year. But that thing's been going forever now, and every year except for 1 year, I remember they missed it. But it's another one of those long running tournaments.
Well, you got a big first milestone there in '97 with your first singles win out of 32. You beat Bomba, Stevie, Harold, Harold Hampton, Jeff
Nice.
Lissaman, Conrad Damon, Sean Sinclair, Mike Rosiska, and R.J. Jerez. And that right there is an impressive list.
Yeah, I mean, back then beating Bomba was a big deal.
Sure.
I still remember playing those last few holes, with Bomba on my back, and it's like, oh, I think he got in some trouble on the last couple holes, So it's like, yeah, I think I got this. So that was a big deal to win that one finally. But all those names, they all beat me at certain times, but that time I won.
I mean,
Yeah.
Even the talk of the development of the northern scene, Harold Hampton, it was a pretty fixture in the Stockton, Sacramento scene. Where was he?
Sacramento. He
Sacramento,
came out of
yeah.
Sacramento scene. But yeah, he was, one of the regulars and one of the guys to beat. He was kind of a young
Yeah, you better
newbie.
not mess with that German Shepherd.
Yeah.
He'll nip you in the butt.
He had it
Speaking
under
from
control, though.
experience.
He was the
Definitely.
ace man. He aced all the time. He's got some spectacular aces.
Was he always throwing rocks?
Yeah, a lot of rocks.
Well, he got that big one, that big 600-footer with an ABR, though.
Right, I went on video, and that was like 2,500 at the time or something. But to
Yeah,
me,
he
his
edged
best
me
ace-
out that year. I had one for 1667 earlier in '93,
Nice.
and it got
Yeah,
to
that was a big
summertime,
one.
and Harold topped it.
That one was huge. We couldn't imagine getting that much money back then. But to me,
I
Harold's best
still have
ace
the
was
dryer. I bought a stereo, a washer, and a dryer, and I still have the dryer.
Nice. That thing
31
goes a
years
long way.
later.
That's a good ace, right? But Harold has a
Yeah.
multi-millennium ace. Multi-millennium. We threw the shot in 1999, and it landed in the basket in 2000.
Get out.
Nope, it happened. He hit it. That was for real.
Wow.
We had about 10 of us lined up on this. We put a basket out there on this hole that we've been playing, pull natural object course. It was night, literally, obviously, in the middle of the night. And we all threw it, and Harold hit it. Multi-millennium ace.
Wow. That's
I mean,
badass.
Nobody's going to beat that for 100 years.
Jeez.
So-
Nobody can beat it for
nobody
100
can
years.
for 1,000
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Multi-millennial. Oh my
I
goodness.
don't remember who was there. I think, Loya was there, maybe, Kevin Callahan. There was a bunch of us, we were all wanted to get together to try this out. I've been talking about it for months. And Harold hit it.
That's
So and
awesome.
he was always good at that. He always hit aces, big aces.
He can step it up for the boys. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Here's
But-
a great Harold Hampton story. Remember when Harold and Swinger and I think Stevie toured in Oates' old motorhome?
I think Bomba was with them, wasn't he?
Maybe, but I don't think
Yeah, I
Bomb
remember
was out
that.
there full time.
No.
Right.
But
So
where
we're in
you're
Kansas
talking
City.
about-
We're in
Oh.
Kansas City staying at Hal Baby's.
Okay.
And one of the things that always happens if you're on tour and you stay at Hal Baby's, he tells you to come on over. He had a janitor supply business at the time, and he had steam cleaners that he rented, and you could get your vehicle cleaner than showroom new at Hal Baby's shop. And so they take that, and I'm going to say it, that motorhome was a piece of shit. I don't know how the hell they
Yeah.
made it through the whole
It
season.
was.
It was a tub of shit. But every time it left Kansas City, it was spotless. It was pristine. It was in top shape. So it's parked out in front of Hal's house on 92nd or 95th, one of the two. And remembers James Swinger?
Yeah.
Young guy. They used to live up there at the forest with Roger and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Swinger tracked through the carpet, freshly cleaned, probably still wet from steam cleaning.
Right.
And like Harold called him out of the house. He goes, "Dude, get out here. You got to explain this."
Yeah.
And Swinger comes out and he goes, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "You walked across this carpet, didn't you?" He goes, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." And he goes, "We matched up your shoes. We matched up the tracks." And that's when I gave Harold the general nickname, and we called him the general for a while. I was like, "Tell that
Right.
private what's up. Get him, general. Get him."
Yeah. Because that was it. Swinger was a private back then.
Oh, for
And
sure,
by that time,
100%.
everybody's on everybody's nerves from being together too long too. So
Yeah,
that's all you need to
it was
set you off.
hilarious, man. It's
Those were the
not
good
me,
old days.
Swinger. We matched up the shoe prints. We matched your shoes, whatever. He said it was awesome, man.
Yep.
So funny.
Goes on and on with those stories.
So,
The good old days.
final note before we leave San Francisco Safari, it is the site of your first Masters win in 2005. You remember that year?
Ooh.
Yeah, they all blend in. So no.
Okay. You don't remember specifically as a master going, "Hey, I'm now in this new division." I just no.
No,
The
because
edge.
moving up, you're not real proud to get old and beat older guys. But I remember when I first moved up, I would say Masters is soft because I would be like first, second, third, shoot a bad round and you fall 2 spots. In the Open, you shoot a bad round and you fall 10 spots. So that was my initial reaction to Masters was it's soft because it wasn't it wasn't a proud moment to move Masters, but of course nothing against it, but that's what I remember about those first few days of Masters was you didn't fall as bad when you shot bad on the final round.
Some
But
people
who did I
just
beat that year?
let me check that out. I
But
summed the
that was what 90s what
2005. I'll check that out. Mace, you jump into the next category there. We're gonna leave Northern California.
Oh, all right. Here's some good. Here's some. We're going to talk about traveling south. SoCal, Silmar, Oak Grove, Wintertime Open, La Mirada.
that goes back a while. I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, and that covers a lot of ground there. So
Yeah,
SoCal got the jump on the flying disc scene, obviously, because it was right there where everything was being made. And with the
right.
exception of Santa Cruz and San Francisco, the NorCal scene was slower to grow. But at the same time, I mean, you guys still had tons of top talent that were coming along. So 1989, you went to the your first wintertime open, I believe. No, the 11th. Excuse me, 11th annual wintertime open, and you took 20th. But the data doesn't show any money or anything like that. Did you play guts in any of the freestyle at that event,
Yeah,
1989? Do you
I
remember?
did. Yeah. Well, freestyle. That was Glenn and I freestyling, and I played guts
Nice.
too, and that was fun. I remember having a good time playing guts, and
Uh,
I think I won one year in the guts competition. But
they didn't keep those records,
nope.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, then
But
in
I always
90,
enjoyed going there for a few years.
90 at the U.S. Open, you got a DNF. What happened there? Were you hurt?
That DNF in the '90, really? I think that was the only time I ever played that tournament. I don't know what happened. I went down with Glenn, and I think we stayed with Sam maybe or
Okay, so
somewhere.
just to answer about your question about Masters 2005, who was your competition? Donnie Olo was second, and Billy Payne Lane third, or they are actually tied for second, and Earl Weaver
I beat
fourth.
Donnie Olo. Nice.
Yeah. So
But
now,
yeah, that U.S. Open, I remember going to that. That was the overall tournament.
yes,
Glenn and I would freestyle, and I don't recall what happened with that DNF.
but that was a fairly organized event at La
Yeah,
Mirada, wasn't it? Like that's did it was it all that prestigious stuff? Did it feel that glamour? This is big or bigger than any of the other overall events you played?
yeah, it was a big time deal. I think we might have hitchhiked down there, as a matter of fact, and just
tell
tried to find a
tell
place to
us.
stay or something like that. But I do remember it was kind of overwhelming because for some reason I was just like, oh, this is just too much. Playing all the events, and maybe like I say, we didn't have a place to stay. Maybe I think it was later I stayed with Sam with Oates, but I don't. I just remember that event. It was just Glenn and I freestyling, and the golf was whatever it was. I probably didn't play that well, so I don't know about that DNF.
I mean, the records are pretty sketchy. They just show, I think, one round maybe
And that's the golf
for
DNF.
George. Yeah, for golf. And
Okay.
this is the kind of, not the
Probably
futility,
left
but
early is what I
the
think.
frustration of the PDGA database. So this is the thing. You obviously played there, right? You
Right.
hitchhiked all the way. You're not going to not play.
I'm pretty sure we did. Maybe we had a car, but I'm thinking we probably left early. Glenn and I were probably all burned out. It's like, let's get out of here, and left. Something like that. That would. It's been a while.
What about the rest of the kind of when you guys went down to SoCal? Was it? Is there still kind of a SoCal NorCal envy rivalry in the terms of teams? I know you've played a lot of team environments and you've
Yeah.
represented
Yeah,
down in the Southwestern Invitational.
yeah. I mean, it
Like, is
wasn't.
there not that there's an envy or a rivalry or anything, but is there,
I would say both is true. And the envy would have been the early days that what we had up here was just the beginnings, and they were already established as the mecca. So, like I say, when I was young and growing up, it was La Mirada was like it. That's where it's all, because Oak Grove was first, but you heard about La Mirada because all the good players were coming out of there, and so I would say envy came in at that point. It's like, yeah, all everyone do is go to La Mirada and be play down there because that's where you prove yourself.
do you remember the
And
first
then
time you went down there and played it?
I do remember, it was like early before, I might have been 14. I was really young.
Wow.
I went down with my dad to see his friend who lived like blocks away, and I remember walking over there with a disc and playing by myself. And I was, this is like before I was really even into disc much, but I was into it and I knew about it. I was like, oh, we're going to La Mirada. Well, there's this frisbee course there. I got to go see that. And I played by myself, and I remember seeing one guy, carrying the North American Series, like 2 or 3 discs, and he had cleats on, and he was serious. And I tried to talk to him. He's like, "Oh, I got to practice. I'm practicing." And was one of the obviously one of the better players. And I was probably 14, maybe 15, and that was the first time I played La Mirada, until maybe that tournament. But because I didn't go down there much, but LA was the mecca, because it had already
Yeah.
started. All the good players were there. There was notoriety there,
And they
and
made
us
the plastic, or at least they made
they
the
did, yeah.
molds
So it was
there.
all coming out of there. And up
Yeah.
here in NorCal, we were, I would say, wannabes, but yeah, we wanted to have notoriety. We wanted to be able to beat those guys per se, or be as good as because that's where it all was coming from.
Yeah.
So yeah, the envy was there, and then the competition, of course, especially once team tournaments started happening, and they would come up to Santa Cruz and beat us, and it's like, oh, we can't have that, So both envy and rivalry are there and still there, but the camaraderie is well above that,
Well, for
especially
sure, and that goes across
those are
everywhere. I mean,
yeah.
that's one thing that's a common theme. But it's interesting that you just mentioned. Well, maybe we hitchhiked there, and when we move into a later era of interviewing folks, like in the say from the 2000s on, pretty much nobody's going to tell us a story about hitchhiking to any tournament.
Yeah.
Well, I know we hitchhiked down to the Rose Bowl in 1980. Glenn and I did. We hitchhiked,
Wow,
and
Tell us
and
about
we
that
went down just to
story.
watch, just to watch,
just to watch both of you,
because we
even
didn't
Glenn
know
didn't
how to
play.
sign up. We didn't know anything about signing up. We didn't know anything about it. All we knew is there's a Rose Bowl and having a frisbee tournament, and we like to play frisbee. We want to see it, so we hitchhiked down there, and slept in somebody's side yard right outside the Rose Bowl in the bushes.
Huh.
And the first time we arrived in LA, we were looking for a place to stay, and we stumbled upon the Hollywood Bowl, and there was people waiting in line overnight to buy tickets for Monty Python. And so we
Really?
slept in the line because we needed a place to sleep, and there was all these people with their tents set up to buy tickets the next day. And we set up, we just rolled out our tent because of our sleeping bags because we needed a place to stay. And we were just wandering around looking for a place, and then we went and played frisbee in there all night, and then got up in the morning,
Oh man, we're losing him.
We're so excited to get their tickets.
There he is.
That was
Did you buy tickets?
that was a good one. And then we hitchhiked down to the Rose Bowl. Are you kidding me? We had like $12, and we had one joint full on, and it was
Wait, oh my lord, this is the
It'll
wrong
come
time
back.
to
thing
freeze
in
up.
Irvine. We went, the road, but it didn't. It was on Sunday, so we were out there, and we saw somebody who told us, "Oh no, events are going on the Houston."
Damn it.
We didn't have a car or any way to get there, but we went in for Sunday, and that was our.
That'd be an awesome trip.
It's really the coolest. When I was laying this out, I didn't know obviously the depth and complexity of their friendship and how how long it goes back. Sorry, you're cutting in and out, Pete. We maybe if we just keep going, you might get a
It'll
little
come back.
more. It'll come back.
It'll work on the recording.
But
It'll gather whatever, and it'll be a better quality on the recording. So we can keep going with that.
if you can hear us, then I'm just going to continue on with
Now I
okay.
can.
Now, okay, there we go. I think it's
Perfect.
stable now. Talking about your extreme amazing relationship with Glenn, and now you've gone up to Vancouver many times over your career, your life, your career, but also your life. You've played their tournament up there, their official PDJ tournaments. But I asked Roger for some notes about you, just like anything you want to say, and he's got this one story how the three of you, Scott Riley, Raj, and you in 1996, you just walk into a gym to go play basketball. All want to do is play basketball, and the guards can't stop you. You don't have a ticket. You have to be in there to pay. What's the story behind that? What kind of Jedi mind trick did you use? That's all that Raj said.
I can't remember that specifically,
Okay,
to tell you the truth.
is
I do remember it
Vancouver?
happening.
Yeah.
So Roger remembers it better than I do, but
Okay.
uh,
He did look up to you. He considered you, your tour guru, and
He's
maybe
told
probably.
lots of Sontag stories.
and I've got
Lot.
lots of Roger stories. Same,
I do
but
too.
you can't remember them all. It's just
I can't remember all of them either. But
right.
yeah, I
Exactly.
got a bunch of great Roger stories.
Do you have any favorites you want to tell?
Roger. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
The deep
I
breath.
remember when he was young and we first met.
Yeah.
At Crane Creek, and I didn't know who he was, but mostly just that road trip was, that was '96, and it was, Scott had his little pickup with the camper shell, and I had my pickup with the camper shell, and we both drove, and Roger would jump back and forth between the two, and we spent about 6 weeks driving around, and we all had bicycles, and we just had the best time. It was so much
Wow.
fun. We'd stop, and we had a great bike ride in Chicago, and we had no money, and things just came to us, and we had an excellent time in Vancouver, wandering around at night, and obviously the basketball story that I don't remember, but it was just endless. And then literally just last weekend we all had a great time hanging out at the cabin and playing, and so my Roger stories are continuous and
Infinite.
ongoing. Yeah,
Infinite.
and the same with
Well,
the Glenn stories and the Riley stories. But Roger and I, yeah, we spent a lot of time together. And again, just recently, it was a great weekend. But that road trip was just full of adventures.
well,
So
Yeah,
fun
listen.
he
to do.
talks. He always talks about how you didn't cuss the whole time. That's one thing. One story he's told me.
I feel I think that probably came from I'm not I don't want to spend energy expressing my disappointment when I play. It's like, all right, you made that mistake. Don't make a fool of yourself, or don't distract yourself by losing your temper. Focus on what you need to do to come back and do that shot better next time. Because you're not done yet. But that was a good tour.
Um, was there a lot of reggae in that? Who had control of the
There was
music?
a lot of reggae in that. That's what he and I bonded over reggae a lot. You know, because I had a whole
That goes
box of
without
cassette
saying if
tapes.
Roger was on board.
Well, yeah, of
I had a
course.
box, literally a whole box of cassette tapes that I had recorded off the radio shows. You know, this mix match, real, you know, but it was
That's what
all good stuff. And I
people
remember
don't
he
know
was
that.
impressed with the selection,
Okay.
and we totally, both then realized, oh yeah, we're both seriously into this. That's all we listened to over and over and over. And same thing this weekend.
Right on.
Nothing's changed.
Does Riley
So
have the same flavor of music, or was he
Riley's more varied. I don't think he's that much into reggae, but
he tolerated it?
we went to a lot of Dead shows together, Scott and I, and
Oh, really?
I don't remember going to reggae shows with him. But I know he's a reggae fan as much. But Roger and I are both serious
Old school hardcore reggae
old
people.
school dub music, and
Yeah.
yeah, Roger's come and gone from the area, and he was living here for a while, and now he's moved down to Monterey an hour plus, and it's like I always forget. Oh, I should have hung out with Roger more when he was in Oakland, but he's always
Yeah.
around. It's just not as close as he used to be. But
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sure you can
family,
tell a lot of stories about going to Warriors games with him too. I mean, I've heard a lot of
oh
those
yeah,
stories as
yeah.
well.
We've been to a lot of Warriors games together. He's a big Warriors fan like me, and so
well,
we're not done
it's
with that one either. We'll be going to more this year.
sweet. It's
Yeah,
one big frisbee family out there, and I think we've gone well past our normal good times hour cutoff, and we've taken a lot of your time as it is. We've got a lot more stuff on the script that we can talk to you about, which just means that we've got another reason to have you on for another show if you want. But we
nice.
don't want to take more of your time. We do want to thank you for taking all that time and just telling some really amazing, fun, awesome stories. Sometimes I
Well,
get a little buried in the stats, but I tried not to get too deep
I,
in the actual stats and just ask for the stories behind everything.
as someone who doesn't follow your show, I'd say the stats are good. I like that. It's a good starting point, a good talking point, and I feel honored that you asked me. I really am. I'm so happy that I got to do
Well,
this.
it's
Nice.
one of the things I've always enjoyed running into you, like from the very beginning, and
Likewise.
it's one of like kind of we talked about on the phone the other day. There's so many folks that I know a little about, and I feel like
Yeah.
I know
Well
a
stated.
lot about you. A
Right.
lot of it's legend. It's a lot of it's Roger stories and stuff like that. But
The stuff
but
you
I've
hear, right?
also I've never I've always had a great time hanging out with you, and looking forward
Likewise.
to the next time for sure.
And that we're always out on tour and having a good time. So it's not like you're here on Monday morning or something. Whatever. So we're always together at good times. But
For sure.
we're all good
For
people, and
sure.
that's part of the extended family. Is there's so many of us that we don't get to spend a lot of time with each other, so we don't get to know each other, and hear these stories. But eventually, we'll get more
Well,
time together,
and
and we live so far apart.
these stories are the staples, and
Yeah,
I really thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you sharing some of your wisdom, and we definitely look forward to the next time we talk to you.
and I thank you guys for not just recording this, but for all the recordings you're doing. These are, like I say, these are going to be very important as the years go by. That all these people you've recorded. So keep up the good work, and thanks for having me on.
Right on.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
And if anybody
Appreciate it.
like Earl, you run into Earl Weaver or even the Whitler or anybody else, and they say, "Hey, saw you on the show," please tell them that we say hi too, because man, I
That I
mean,
will.
there's so many names that popped up in this alone, and every time, man, every time, well, it doesn't even. I don't even have to get geographical. It just seems like every time we do an interview, unless we're going to the '70s, then I don't know as many names. But if I get to the late '70s, I know a
Right.
lot of those folks that are still around.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
really, it's
Nice.
just awesome to spend some time with you.
How many shows do you do? Do you do this daily, weekly, or what do you do?
We try to do it weekly. We've
Weekly.
had some hiccups. We have to
Yeah.
pull the
I mean,
reins
it's a
in
lot
when
of
I
work
get
for
into
you.
Christmas season, but But
Yeah.
it's
And life is busy, and then you're doing this, so we all
we're in the mid
appreciate it.
70s right now of total shows so far. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Two and
Wow,
a
that's
half
awesome.
years, just over 2
Wow,
years.
that's cool. Well, I'll be going
Yeah.
back and watching some shows now. I'm a fan.
well,
Very
there's
nice.
some great stuff
Cool.
out there, and you're just gonna be like, holy cow, I never thought about
Yeah.
that, or I hadn't heard
Right.
this story or whatever. And there's a
Nice.
lot of people on that list that you know quite well. So, and we're
Right.
gonna continue to try to chip away at it. That's the only thing that's kind of sucks about this is like you think about, okay, well, I've got a list. We've probably got a list
Yeah.
of 50 people that said, yeah, they'd
Hundreds.
be on, but when are we going to get them
Yeah.
all on?
You got it. Yeah. This is yeah. If you had a big studio and a paycheck to do this, you can get them all. But this is
Uh,
you guys are working hard, and we all appreciate it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Appreciate
Pete.
that. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, guys.
Nice to meet
Bye.
you.
We really appreciate you
Likewise.
stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you again soon, buddy.
All right, I'll see you on the road somewhere.
All right, everybody. Have a good evening.
That was fun.
Right on. Talk to you later, brother.
All right. See you, man.